Are you thinking about buying a new construction home, but you're not real sure where to get started and who to help you? Or do I call the builder? Do I call a realtor? Do I just walk in? Like, what do I do? Well, we're going to share our tips that we use with our clients to make sure our clients get a great deal on a new construction home. Let's jump into it. Okay, so one of our tips for getting a great deal on new construction is hire a buyer's agent who's experienced with new construction homes. Now, this is a big deal. You may be like, yeah, every agent knows about new construction. Well, some areas don't have any new construction. They are historic areas, they've been built out for a long time. And you have areas and agents that are specialty agents and specialty areas. So make sure when you hire a buyer's agent, they have experience around new construction and know the difference in some of the different types of new construction. Some of them are completely brand new subdivisions built all by one builder. Some of them are built by several builders. It's a brand new subdivision, but there's two or three different builders, and each builder will have their own individual take on what they do or their specific specialty. There was one builder in our area not long ago that was actually more affordable, but their floor plans were a little funky. But they had a specialty way of building that their floor plan would be a little weird, but you got some great square footage at a value price. Now, that may be the goal of what you're buying, but it may not be. You may really want some particular high end finishes, or you may really want and prioritize floor plan. By the way, that's something we recommend is make sure the floor plan feels good and is right. And so you don't end up with some weird and awkward rooms. But everybody has their different value proposition. And you need to know that if you're going into a neighborhood, what's each builder's value proposition. And your buyer's agent, if they're experienced in new construction in that area, they're going to know. So make sure you talk to them about those things. And this is something that doesn't get talked about all the time is you want to partner on this because in new construction, this could go quite quickly, or it may be 6, 8, 10, even 18 months of a build process. So you want to partner with you on that journey, but to know when different things come up, you may literally be bringing a house completely out of the ground. It may have been formerly a pasture, or a forest, and it has been, completely transformed and is a growing area and is going to be a new neighborhood. And so over this process, you're going to know, and there's going to be different parts of the process going through a framing walk or a foundation walk or an electrical walk or a low voltage walk. And you're going to want someone that's been there and done that before and has some good ideas. We actually had helped a client just recently go through and they were like, oh my gosh, don't forget to plan, where the plugs are going to be around where the Christmas tree is going to be on the new house. Or I've told people to make sure you have a plug around the handrails and banisters because at holiday times you want to have lit garland and things like that. And that could be something that's very easy to do in the new construction process, but very difficult to do later on. So planning those out. We had a client recently add some plugs on their mantle so they could have a plug-in for various things that they put on the mantle. So just some tips as you're going through that when you have that agent. And there's a myth that's out there about hiring an agent in new construction is actually you're not going to get the best deal. And actually, the agents get paid from the builder. That comes out of the builder's proceeds. It doesn't cost you any more money by any means. And so we like sharing that myth that people are like, well, I'm going to get a better deal or I'm going to save the money and use that in the upgrades. And actually, it's more times than not, you're just helping the builder have more profits and you're having less of a good experience and service. So, everyone has their own unique situation, but more times than not, a very experienced, educated, and sophisticated buyer's agent is really going to add more value in the process. And again, it doesn't cost you anymore. And another thing is the buyer's agents will often know some trends or be aware of some trends or incentives in the market that may not be available to the public. And that's another asset. Just like we were talking about, if you go into a neighborhood where there's three or four builders, you may know that a builder's closing out and they've only got two to go. And closeouts are a good opportunity too. We'll talk about that in one of the later points. But we want you to know, you need to know that. And you may not know that as a forward facing consumer. So you just may miss that opportunity if you didn't have the right agent involved. So again, one of our first tips here, make sure you hire a buyer's agent and a partner to help make sure you get a great deal on new construction homes. Okay, next, make sure that you look into all the incentives that are being offered. Now, again, we've talked about you may be in a standalone new construction that's out all by itself. It's been, a tear down where someone's torn down an older house and an area is changing because of any number of things, but growing back in popularity or, needed to be torn down just because it hadn't been maintained. Now, that may be, an individual infill builder, but when you're working with a subdivision builder or a suburban builder, you can go through and talk to them about some of their incentives. Almost always in new construction, there's some kind of incentive going on. A few years ago, there were different limits around what they were doing. They were only offering a small amount of closing costs or only, paying a little bit in title. And in our area, title could be as much as 5 to 6, maybe even $8,000. And knowing that in new construction, sometimes it's paid for by the builder and sometimes it's not, is a huge asset just right out of the gate. That's five to $10,000 in value. In addition, they often will have partnerships around their closing companies or lending partners that'll have some incentives that they'll be offering at various times because they're a business and they want to motivate people to go ahead and to get into business with them. And builders have different motivations in different situations. They want to go ahead and pre-sell a certain amount of homes. Some builders won't even start. You have to build it all the way from the ground up with them, but some of them will have an incentive. They'll have some spec homes that you can buy that are already built out and are ready to go and can close in a typical 30 to 45-day window. And sometimes those can be really outstanding deals too, but you want to see what kind of incentives they have. It may have an upgrade special. They may have closing costs that you can offer, but this can be thousands of dollars in value knowing right out of the gate which one and what incentives are being offered, by the builder right now. We've seen rates change recently in the market. And so now some incentives are being offered to have a rate buy down in the market. Sometimes, a few years ago, they were limiting the amount of closing costs that they were doing. So you just never know what incentives can be there. Builders are creative, their vendors are creative, and it's kind of a surprise. It's kind of fun to discover what's out there. So make sure when you're getting started in the process of buying a new construction home, find out on the very beginning what kind of incentives are being offered. Let's talk about lot premiums. Now, when you're buying in a subdivision, you can get into a lot premium and you may be able to pick out across, 50 different lots that are currently available. There may be some with a premium, some with a super premium, and some that are just regularly available and or that do not carry a lot premium. Now, a lot premium can be, I've seen as much as, tens of thousands of dollars, even $100,000 or more for a lot premium. And those are typically the best lots or bigger lots. And the builders have put premiums on those because everybody's going to want those lots. Now, depending on your goals and depending on the size of the house and the model of the house that you're wanting and what's being built in the neighborhood, it can make sense to go ahead and choose that lot premium property, that lot premium lot, because you may be building a significantly bigger house than everything else in the neighborhood, or there may be only building a certain model that you want and it requires you to be on a bigger lot because it has a bigger footprint. That's a whole nother conversation. But one time we were out with clients and they called us, they'd found the one. And actually, we went through and looked at there were 7 lots available. 3 of the 7 had a lot premium on them. And actually, when we got on site, we realized that the lot that they had picked was actually on the lower end of the street. And it actually, when you looked at the grading, all of the water of those 7 houses flowed toward that house. And I told them right then and there, I said, hey, you're going to need to be mindful of this. It actually had a lot premium on it because it was a bigger lot. I said, but all of the water management across these 4 or 5 houses is going to come right at you. And don't you know, they bought up the hill. They bought on a lot that didn't have a lot premium on it, and it was deeper and actually was a little bit more private because of the location. And actually, they told me after they moved in and had been living in the house for a few months, they called me and they said, Alex, you know that lot? They built a house there. It's a spec house, but it's not selling. And you know what? I've heard that it does have has had a couple of buyers on it, and it had some issues and has had some water issues. So that's something that we like to talk about and share, that you may not know that, and your buyer's agent will help you with those unique specialty things in your market. This is one of those added values that, debunks that myth that buyer's agents really can and do help with their knowledge and experience in the market and for the future, right? People don't always think about the fact that these new construction houses haven't lived life yet, right? They haven't lived life through summers and winters and huge rainstorms like we have in our area where we can get 2 and 3 inches in an hour. And so we've got to be prepared, and the houses have to be prepared, to manage those different weather events. So just another great tip to share with you when you're looking at lots is, do we need to pay a lot premium? Is the model we're looking for? And is it going to help us reach our goals long term with this property? Another tip to make sure you get a great deal when buying new construction is, are there any cash incentives? Now, builders are in the business of selling houses, right? They're in the business of building houses. And at different times of the year, there can be great opportunity to be a cash buyer and to close quickly and to get a great deal. In our market, we've had a couple of situations where we've had buyers and been successful with cash buyers that they said, look, we can be cash. Is there a value to being cash? And often there is. We've had a situation where there was a closeout. The builder was finishing in a subdivision. They were the last or next to last home that was in that subdivision, and it was a closeout deal, and they were ready to move their resources to cash out of what they can and move on to their next project. And so, literally being a cash deal that could close quite quickly, that's one of the things in the values is that you can close, in 10 days or 2 weeks. And given the right situation, that can be a huge asset to make sure you get a good deal when you're buying new construction. It may not be. If they've got 50 lots to go and they've only pre-sold two, that may not be the timing to use that tactic to get a great deal in new construction. But it can be, which is why it's one of the tips that we share. You've got to always ask. Upgrades. Now, upgrades is where you could get in huge trouble in new construction houses, but there is a way that you could be careful and find out if there's an opportunity. Often, builders may defend their price because in the situation where they've only got, two lots sold and they have 50 to go, well, they're not going to be very flexible on the price because they have a lot more houses still need to go and sell. But they may give you an upgrade, may give you 20 or even $30,000 in upgrades to use in the design center. And you can use that on flooring or cabinets, paint colors, countertops, any number of things above the standard grade that you get there. You can use that as one of your assets going into the negotiation, and you can help pick exactly what you want. Now, you need to be careful there because you want to know what's going on in the neighborhood and you don't want to overbuild. Recently, we were with a client in the field and they walked in and said, first thing we got to have is we got to have hardwoods everywhere in this house. The entire house, they wanted hardwoods. And actually, we were in the moment and I looked at the new construction agent and he looked at me and I was like, how many homes are all hardwood floor in this neighborhood? And there were about 250 houses in this neighborhood. He said, actually, I can't think of one. And my client looked at me, he was really surprised. He was like, "Well, wait a minute." And from where they had come from and what they were familiar with, every floor was hardwood floors. Everywhere on the first floor, on the bedrooms, everywhere except the kitchen and the bathrooms were all hardwood floors. And actually, they'd shifted markets where there were some hardwood floors in the entry, in the living room, in the dining room, but the balance of the rest of the house would be carpet. And so that's another interesting tip to check in to not only with the builder's agent, but with your buyer's agent to help you make good choices around some of your upgrades and decisions there, because that could be one that could be 40 or $50,000 on flooring alone, and that could really hurt you and be an expense that ultimately you won't reap rewards for when you go to sell the property. Hey, so thanks for watching this video and being this far. If we're just meeting for the first time, my name's Alex Brandaw, and I am a realtor in Nashville, Tennessee, and love sharing great tips and tricks like this that we've used for 2 decades and over 1,100 buyers, $500 million in sales volume. If you like what you're seeing, please do subscribe and drop us a comment below of what you've liked so far, what the best tip has been. Let's get back into it. One of my favorite tips to share with clients that are looking at new construction homes and getting a great deal is around spec homes. Now, spec homes, sometimes people go, "Ooh, that sounds like a bad word. It sounds like, spec. I don't know what that means." Well, that stands for being speculative, and it can be a really great opportunity opportunity to get a great deal. Recently, we had a client that we were working with that came across a house that had fallen out of contract. It had become an inherited spec home. They had been in business, the builder had gone into business with another buyer who had made a lot of choices, who had done a lot of selections on the house, and it was getting ready to deliver and be their new home. And that buyer lost their job and they were no longer moving to our market. So they ended up with an inventory home. The builder ended up with an inventory home that they thought they had sold. And so actually this spec home now that the builder ended up with, ended up being a great opportunity for my buyer. My buyer actually liked a lot of the selections, and they were actually given deep discounts on all of the things because they'd been paid for. All of the upgrades had been paid for by the other buyer. And when they defaulted on their contract, the builder had already been paid for those things. And so because we could close quickly, we got a great deal on that property. So that's the kind of opportunity you can get around speculative homes. Sometimes builders will go ahead and spec out speculatively, build their houses, and make a lot of choices and selections, some of the favorite selections across the neighborhood. And this is a great way to end up with a great deal because as that home finishes, the builder wants to sell it and go ahead and have a homeowner in that property. And typically, when they do speculative homes like this, you find that they actually will do 20 to 25% of the upgrades already, as opposed to building one out from out all the way out of the ground and you paying for all the upgrades. The builder may make those choices for you. The advantage of this is that the home is ready and you can move into it in a normal timeline, in a typical as a resale, a 30 to 45-day timeline, as opposed to waiting to build it over 8 to 18 months, depending on where the process is. So spec homes can be an amazing opportunity to get a great deal when buying new construction. There you have it, guys. Those are some of our tips to get a great deal on new construction. Which one was your favorite? Drop us a comment below. If we can help you, we'd love to be in touch and be your agent of choice in Nashville, Tennessee. But if not, and you're buying somewhere else, we have connected across the country and would be happy to connect with you. If you found some value in this video, please let us know, subscribe, and we'd love to stay in touch with you in the months ahead. And until we connect again, keep on keeping on.